So this is the third in this series about creating more ethical marketing for you as a coach and being willing to come to the table to show up and not be afraid of being icky or manipulative or overwhelmed with marketing. So I'm using Stephen Hassan's BITE model for authoritarian control, which he has used to help identify and analyze the elements of control and manipulation inside groups and cults, and applying it to the marketing world and helping you to basically not fall into any of these tactics or to recognize when they are being done to you or make sure that you are not doing them to your audience. So today is number 3, which is the T in BITE, which is thought control. So here are some ways that marketers can use thought control in their marketing. And then I'm going to talk about what else you can do and give you some questions to think about. Again, there's a free resource with all of this laid out for you that will help you to go along. So with thought control, promoting a specific narrative. So marketers can shape consumers' thoughts by presenting a particular narrative that aligns with their brand using persuasive language, testimonials, or influential endorsements. This can be done ethically, but it is a way of influencing your consumer to think a certain way. So this is all of marketing. It's like when you see that red Coke can, the thoughts you have about that are put into your head by the marketing. So the imagery, the visuals, the colors, the videos of happy people, all of that help shape your thoughts and also emotions, which we'll go into in the final video. So promoting a specific narrative is going to shape your consumers' thoughts. Discouraging critical thinking. This is a big one. So inside cults, you don't have the ability to critically think, and they create that disability in you with lots of different manipulative tactics layered upon each other. It's like each one by itself probably wouldn't do the trick, but when you layer them all on top of each other, it takes away the ability of your cult member, or in this case, your consumer, to critically think. So marketers might discourage critical analysis or questioning by presenting their products or services as the ultimate solution or by emphasizing emotional appeals over logical reasoning. This is very dangerous because taking away your consumer's ability or discouraging their critical analysis puts you in a position for them to buy from you when it's not right for them. This is going to lead to dissatisfied customer experiences. This is going to break down your relationships with your audience over time. You may make less sales in the short term if you encourage your customers to critically think and analyze before buying, but you will have more long-term relationships with people and they will trust you more. Thirdly, cultivating groupthink is another way that marketers establish thought control. So marketers foster a sense of community or belonging amongst consumers, encouraging them to conform to the opinions and behaviors promoted by the brand or its online community. We don't want our consumers to have groupthink. We want to have them be able to critically think in their own individual way. So how can we encourage critical thinking and independent decision-making? So by encouraging that, rather than promoting blind conformity or dependence on the brand, that's number 1, taking away pressures and encouraging space and time before purchasing. So think about the colors, the fonts, the countdown timers, the pressure that you are putting on people subliminally, subconsciously, and overtly inside your promotions, on your sales pages, in your email marketing. Think about how could you encourage critical thinking rather than having bright flashing things that make people a little stressed, feel pressure, their nervous system is going into hyperdrive, and they're actually, when you are in that state, you're not critically thinking. So, and I want you to remember that your customer is smart. He or she is more aware than you recognize, and treating them with this respect, it will be surprising for them because you'll be different, you'll stand out, and they will feel more relaxed in their interactions with you and your brand. Again, this is going to foster long-term trust and relationship building over time where you have customers and potential clients that learn from you, that follow you, that want to stay around in your communities for a lot longer. So now I'm going to give you some questions to encourage freedom of mind and thinking. If there are terms or expressions that you're using inside your coaching or your programs or on your social media, on your website, wherever in your communities that are not common to everyday language. So if you're using insider lingo or phrases, are you defining them so that everyone's on the same page? This is something I see, for example, in the metaphysical communities where they'll throw out words that maybe aren't totally defined. Everyone's saying the same word, but no one really knows what they're meaning by that word. This can be dangerous. Loaded language and using language to manipulate people's thoughts is a cult tactic. This is something that was done all the time in the cult that I was in. The leader of that cult loved to change the meanings of words, talk about the meanings of words, and twist the meanings of words so that the thoughts that you had about those words were not the same as the actual definitions or what's used in popular culture or the rest of society. And it helps foster that groupthink or that separation of insider and outsider. So let's not be cult leaders, and let's make sure that if we're using words differently than the actual definition, that we are explaining why, or if we're using insider words and phrases, let's not assume that everyone knows what we are saying, what we're meaning by those words. Let's lay that out and say, when I use this word, this is what I mean. And especially if you're doing coaching in any sort of energetic or metaphysical or spiritual or whatever, like those words that you're using are going to mean something different to every single person that you're talking to. And that's not really creating a sense of clarity or freedom of mind and thinking. It's not fostering independence in your consumer. It's putting people into your world and having them like believe a certain dogma or doctrine. That's going more onto the unethical, culty side? Am I encouraging expression of thoughts that run a wide range or only good and proper ones? So this is really rampant with law of attraction, positive thinking, toxic positivity, and all of those sort of communities where you are encouraging people to think only a certain way. So telling people to only have good, proper thoughts is a form of thought control. We should allow people to have all of the thoughts that they have, even the bad ones, right? And as a coach, you're going to work with them with your own tools and modalities to help them to think in a different way if they choose and want to, but not to exclude certain thoughts or limit certain thoughts or like what happens is when you tell them you should only have good thoughts is like they're not going to just have good thoughts, and then they're going to have to suppress or hide or dissociate from all the other thoughts that they're having. Is there informed consent before using any type of hypnotic techniques, mantras, or affirmations? This just is a big one for me because there's very rarely consent being given. And what's happening when you're repeating phrases, and you'll even see this, it's not just in meditation when you're actually doing a hypnosis or doing a meditation. You'll see this in marketing. You'll see this with influencers where they have a certain lilt to their voice, or they have repetitive phrases or words that they say over and over and over. It puts the viewer, the audience, into a different frame of mind. It changes your brain waves. It puts them into this more receptive state whereby they're more able to be coerced. They're more able to be manipulated. That is not informed consent. That is putting your person into a different altered state so that you can do something to their thinking. Am I using techniques such as NLP or mind control in my marketing, advertising, or sales process? If you are, Are you informing people? Are you letting them know this is what I'm doing so that they can have a chance to turn it off? No, no one who uses those tactics are actually admitting that they're doing them. In fact, when they are confronted with using them, they will lie about it and say that they're not. This is very unethical. Don't get me started. I have actually been on a webinar with someone, very, very, very big name bro marketer type. And a friend of mine was like, "You have to watch this webinar. It's so good." And I was like, "Okay, I gotta watch this webinar." Now, what he was selling, I didn't need. I knew that before. I knew what he was going to sell at the end. I knew that I didn't need it. My friend even had the thing and said, "Lauren, you don't need this." I watched the webinar and I was like, "I have to buy this. Like, I have to buy this. I don't care. I need it right now." And she was like, "Stop. Like, you don't have," she's like, "Wasn't the webinar great?" I'm like, "Yes, I've got to buy it." And I was so he was a very good mind control marketer and completely manipulated my thoughts. And she was like, "Wait, before you buy, get on with me and let me screen share on Zoom and I'll show you what it is so you can see you don't actually need this. Like, you have all of this already." And I was like, "I don't care. I want to buy." It's like, okay. So I get on with her and I look at it and I'm like, "Okay, I don't actually need this thing. Like, she's telling me I have all of this already. Like, I don't need to spend my money on this." And I didn't end up buying it, but I was right down that rabbit hole, like, instantaneously. And it was really a red flag for me now, knowing what they're doing. So if you feel, and this as a consumer, if you feel suddenly propelled to buy something and you just can't stop yourself, you're probably the marketer is probably using some sort of NLP, mind control, hypnosis that's making you want to buy that thing. If you are the marketer using those things, this is not giving your person agency, informed consent. This is taking away their critical thinking abilities. So if you're watching this and you're not a cult leader, stop it. Okay. Are there any buzzwords or platitudes in my sales copy and marketing? So using virtue signaling or platitudes or buzzwords in an attempt to, like, saying I'm an ethical marketer would be an example. It's like, what does that mean? And is it true? So are you displaying that actually, or are you just throwing that out there? Like, my brand is, you know, is representing or inclusive, or it is welcoming of all ethnicities or whatever. It's like, yeah, you can say that, but how are you actually implementing that? So using those buzzwords is just a way of trying to change the way your person is thinking without actually doing the work to make sure that that's true. Are you using insider or outgrouping in order to elevate my audience to a level that makes them feel superior or special? This was used a lot in the cult that I was in to make everyone there feel really justified and right in spending all of their money to be inside this group and staying inside this group, and having everyone else that was outside the group to look at them as, well, they just don't get it. We are special. We have this insider knowledge that no one else gets or understands because they're not here. That inside outside group is a cult tactic. So, and if you're running a community of any kind, be aware of where you're using that insider or outgrouping status or words, like calling yourselves a special thing. This is taught with membership communities. That's why I'm like, I used to teach memberships and now I'm like so allergic to memberships because I just see so much insider and out grouping, and having someone feel like they belong and feel very special and superior because they're inside your group. Yes, it works very well to sell people on your group, but it is on that spectrum of more unethical and culty because they're not going to want to leave. One of the most powerful social psychology things that's just innate in us is to want to be part of a group. We depend on other people in order to survive. And if you're capitalizing on that desire to feel safe and part of a community to make sales, you might be a little culty. So be aware of that, because, and speaking as someone who left a group and then was completely slandered, shunned, all of it, threatened, everything. It's like that is one of the most traumatic things that any person can go through. And it goes back to just our like ability to survive, which we can't do alone. And it's so innate that it's running in the background of every single person, no matter who they are or if they acknowledge it or not. As a human being, we need other people to survive. So having that, using that, capitalizing on that to form a community to make money, that, in my opinion, is not ethical. So, are you using any inside or out grouping in order to elevate your audience so they feel really special? Please be aware of that. How can my audience and clients voice their constructive criticism and analysis of my teachings and offerings? Am I welcoming constructive criticism? So, we talked about this before. Once again, with thought control or freedom of thinking, you want to encourage dissenting opinions. You want to encourage independent thoughts. You want to welcome people that don't agree with you entirely for constructive criticism. I'm not saying all the haters should come and join your thing. It's like, but when they voice a differing opinion, are you welcoming hearing it, allowing them to have that thought, or are you trying to convince them something else? What other opinions and voices am I inviting onto my platforms to show other sides? So, having your voice not be the only one is another way that you could do this. So, inviting, even just sharing other people's videos, quotes, things like that, other opinions. It's like you don't have to agree with things that other people say, but allowing their voice to be heard, seeing if there's any validity to that from your point of view, and sharing, like, hey, this is what I think, but this is what this person thinks. What do you think? Inviting a discussion. That is a way to not be culty in your group, is like having actual discussions and discourse where people can disagree and can argue even and can walk away feeling different than each other and not having to have it all come back to one right way. Am I inclusive of all belief systems, or am I subtly or out loud making other people's beliefs less valid or less important or more inferior than mine? So, those were some questions to encourage freedom of mind and thinking so that we don't fall into this trap of thought control, providing only a specific narrative that isn't allowing our audience to have critical thinking or encouraging groupthink. In the final video, this will be the E and the bite model, which is about emotional control. So we're going to talk about emotions, boundaries, and social responsibility in the final video.